Hello, Class 2022, and welcome back with our second part of ABG lecture. And this time, we will discuss the acid-base disorders. Okay. Let's proceed with the classifications. So, unahin natin ang respiratory acidosis and alkalosis. Primarily, ang pathophysiology yan will be based on the lungs. While yung metabolic acidosis and alkalosis, ito, ang may sala is yung kidneys. Okay? And then we have two subtypes of metabolic acidosis. We have HAGMA and NAGMA. HAGMA stands for high anion gap metabolic acidosis, while NAGMA is normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. So let's proceed now with our first condition. Respiratory acidosis. The pathophysiology behind this is that the patient experience hypoventilation. Hypoventilation means decrease ang breathing. So therefore, mababa ang RR. So paano nagkakaroon ng acidosis sa mababang RR? So kapag mababa ang RR, mababa din yung exhalation rate. So therefore, mababa ang release of your carbon dioxide, and then mayroon kang retention of your carbon dioxide sa katawan, it will be converted into carbonic acid, and then pababain niya yung pH mo, it will turn into more acidotic. So, proceed tayo sa mga example ng condition that would lead to hypoventilation. Unahin natin ang pain. So, halimbawa, nasubsob ka sa daan, no? Nauna yung mukha mo. So, you're experiencing severe pain in your face. So, ang tendency ng pasyente is that di siya hihinga. Kasi, she or he will associate pain with movement. Di ba na-experience yun kapag in pain kayo, hindi kayo gumagalaw. Kasi the more gumagalaw kayo, lalong lumalala yung painful na symptom. Kaya minsan, no, may mga patient na in pain, hindi sila or nag-hypoventilate sila. Next naman, stroke. Lalong-lalo na kapag ang stroke affects your medulla, which is the respiratory unit of the brain. Kapag, di ba meron tayong reflexes na kahit involuntarily, nakokontrol natin yung inhalation and exhalation, this is all because of the medulla, which is the control unit of the respiration. Kapag nasira or mababa ang blood flow ng medulla, no, nagkaroon ng stroke dito sa part na to, ang tendency niyan sa pasyente, hindi siya or inappropriate yung kaniyang respiration. So therefore, pag nakita nyo yan sa ER, hindi sila humihinga or nagkakaroon ng mababang RR. Next naman, destruction of the pulmonary pathways or daanan ng hangin, specifically this trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. So, kapag sira ang daanan ng hangin, walang lumalabas, wala rin pumapasok na hangin. So, therefore, mababang RR, mababa din ang pH. Next naman, itong mga group of drugs na to. Barbiturates, morphine, and alcohol. So, ano ang common denominator sa tatlong ito? They can induce sleep. No? Nakakaantok silang kapag tinake natin. No? Kapag natutulog or meron tayong tinatawag na deep sleep stage, okay? ang tendency niyan, hindi masyadong humihinga yung pasyente. So, mababa ang RR. So, na-experience nyo ba na i-observe yung kapatid nyo habang tulog? Minsan, hindi sila humihinga, right? Naabangan yung umangat yung tiyan para malaman nyo lang na buhay sila or hindi. So, ganun kasi while in deep sleep. Ay bumababa ang RR, so akala mo hindi humihinga yung ino-observe mong patient. And lastly, strangulation and aspiration. This is the same as the destruction of pulmonary pathway. No? Kung may obstruction dun sa daanan ng hangin, ibig sabihin, walang lumalabas and pumapasok na hangin. So therefore, mababa ang RR. Okay? So in summary, no, ang problem natin with respiratory acidosis is hypoventilation and ang focus is in the lungs. Hypoventilation will cause the retention of your PCO2 in the bloodstream, making it more acidotic or mababa ang pH. So, sino ang magko-compensate? O sino ang sasagot dun sa problema na yan? Ang sasagot dyan is the kidneys. Ano ang gagawin ni kidneys para ma-alter niya itong blood pH na to na below normal? So, ang gagawin niya, it will excrete ammonium reabsorbed bicarbonate. So, kapag ang pH mo, no, madami kang hydrogen ion sa bloodstream, okay? So, ang tendency ng kidneys, it will alter the urine content, no? Patataasin niya yung or palalabasin niya yung ammonium, okay? Papapasukin naman niya yung bicarbonate. Because bicarbonate is a basic compound. So, mas patataasin ngayon niya yung pH mo. And therefore, magiging balance. Next condition is respiratory alkalosis. Ang problem naman natin dito, the pathophysiology is hyperventilation. Kapag hyperventilation, mas madalas ang inhalation and exhalation. So therefore, mataas ang RR. Kapag mataas ang RR, ongoing or severe yung exhalation mo ng carbon dioxide. So mas lumalabas ang carbon dioxide mo. Okay? So walang natitirang carbonic acid. Okay? So therefore, ang blood pH mo is less acidotic or tinatawag natin basic or alkalotic. So, ano ang expected pH mo dyan? Mataas. Okay? So, meron tayong mga condition that would lead to hyperventilation. Unahin natin is mga condition that would lead to hypoxemia, such as in smokers and mountain climbers. So, kasi sa mga condition na to, no, their body senses that they have low oxygen levels or tinatawag nating hypoxemia. So, maghahabol sila ng hininga. Okay? So, they will increase their RR. So, therefore, nagiging alkaline yung kanilang blood pH. Next naman, fever. Na-experience nyo na ba ang taas ng fever nyo and then pag ma-observe yung pasyente, hinga ng hinga, di ba? Parang hinihingal or nag-chills. Okay? So, yung ganong sign nila, it would lead to hyperventilation. And then therefore, mas madaming carbon dioxide na na-release, tumataas ang pH nila. Okay? Next naman, hysteria. Ano nangyayari sa kanila? Umiiyak, no? Or tinatawag natin nagpa-panic attack. Kung na-observe niyo yung mga nagpa-panic attack, parang naiiyak na naghahabol ng hininga and sinasabi niya nahihirapan silang or parang sinasakal sila or nahihirapan huminga. So therefore, tinatry nilang i-increase yung breathing pattern nila, and then yung consequence naman nun, tumataas naman ang blood pH nila. So, anong ginagawa natin sa mga nagpapanik? Diba, tag dito yung ating carbon, parang paper bag. Okay. Sa mga nagpapanik attack, diba, nagpe-paper bag sila. Ano ang principle ng paper bag sa mga ganitong condition? Kapag nag-paper bag yung isang pasyente, halimbawa, no? Yes, ang ganda ng drawing. Anyway, ito, paper bag. So, bawat exhale nila ng carbon dioxide, di ba madami silang ine-exhale na carbon dioxide? Yung naiipon na carbon dioxide dito, nai-inhale nila ulit. So, therefore, nanonormalize ngayon yung blood pH nila. Okay ba? Gets ba? Okay, next naman, and last with our example is lung disorders such as your emboli and fibrosis. So, sa ganitong mga condition, lumiliit yung surface area ng lungs. Halimbawa, ito yung lungs natin. Okay, halimbawa, yan lang. Ang emboli will cause an obstruction with your pulmonary airways, okay, or pulmonary arterioles. So, therefore, hindi maganda yung oxygenation ng ibang parts of your lungs. So, akala mo, mababa ang oxygen levels mo, so maghihinga ka ng mabilis. So, tataas ang RR mo, and then eventually tataas ang pH. In fibrosis naman, fibrosis means scarring. So, madalas ang mag-fibrosis is yung mga patient na may tuberculosis. Okay. So, sa fibrosis, meron kang scar tissue. Halimbawa, ito yung scar tissue. So, itong scar tissue is not an efficient tissue na. No? Hindi na yan, wala na yung kwenta. Hindi na yan gumagana. So, therefore, mas maliit yung surface area mo na may or pwede ang oxygenation. So, therefore, mababa ang oxygen levels mo, tendency na magko-compensate ka through breathing more, and then mas mataas ang pH. So, in summary, again, the problem with respiratory alkalosis is the lungs. And you hyperventilate. So, therefore, nalalabas mo lahat ng carbon dioxide out of your body, so decrease ang levels of your carbon dioxide, causing the pH to be high, okay, or alkaline or basic. So, sino magko-compensate dyan? Siyempre, yung kidneys. Ano naman ang gagawin niya? So, halimbawa, ito yung sa blood mo, okay, mababa ang H ions mo. So, sa urine, ano ang gagawin niyang alteration of the contents? Your NH4 will go back to your blood, or may tawag tayong reabsorption of your ammonium. So, therefore, tataas ngayon yung ating hydrogen content. And then, dahil basic yung iyong pH, madami ka ring bicarbonate. So, therefore, yung bicarbonate na nagpapa-basic ng blood mo, ilalabas mo ngayon sa urine through excretion. Okay? So, therefore, yung overall process na to, it will tend to decrease the pH. So, overall, the effect dun sa primary problem will be now the balanced pH na. Okay, next problem is the non-respiratory or metabolic acidosis. There are two basic pathophysiology dyan. Number one, dumadami yung acid-containing compounds. Okay? And number two naman, meron kang ongoing loss or decreased levels naman ng bicarbonate, which is a basic compound. Okay? And then, di ba nga sabi nga natin, we have subtypes of metabolic acidosis. And this is based on the computation of your anion gap. Anion gap, you can compute it by subtracting the anions and cations. Ano ba itong mga anions and cations sa bloodstream? Ang anions is yung sodium and potassium. Cations is chloride and bicarbonate. So therefore, no, i-minus natin yung anion and cation. Pero basically, no, sodium lang yung kailangan natin. Kasi yung ating potassium, sobrang liit nung normal levels niyan. Kung natatandaan nyo yung ating electrolyte, sobrang liit niyan na wala na siyang effect dun sa formula ng anion gap. So, therefore, sodium na lang ang ginagamit dun sa ating formula. So, minus the yung summation of your cations, your chloride, and your bicarbonate. The normal value for this is 10 to 20 millimoles per liter. So, therefore, di ba, based nga tayo sa anion gap, kapag more than 20 yung ating anion gap, ang tawag natin dyan is high anion gap metabolic acidosis or HAGMA. And in this case, ang pathophysiology niyan is naiipon ang mga acidic compounds sa bloodstream. The example of condition that would lead to this pathophysiology are as follows. Methanol intoxication. Ang methanol, ito yung primary alcohol sa lambanog. Oops. Uremia. What is uremia? Tumataas yung ating BUN with signs and symptoms. Diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a major side effect of uncontrolled diabetes. Next naman, propylene glycol and paraldehyde, which is a content of the cleaning agents, yung mga ganyan, no? And then next, isoniazid. Isoniazid is one of the treatments against TB. Yeah. Then iron tablets kapag sumusobra ka. Lactic acidosis, primarily sa mga nag-exercise, yung breakdown of the lactate out of your muscle mass. Ethylene glycol, ito naman, ginagamit na cooling agent. Or ito yung ginagamit na panlinis ng mga aircon, yung mga ganyan. And then ethanol, yan, supposedly sa mga iniinom nating mga alcohol-containing liquors. And salicylate. Salicylate is also known as your aspirin. Okay. Para mas madali natin tandaan itong mga conditions na to, we have mnemonics such as yung itong napulot ko somewhere sa internet. Mud piles. M for methanol, U for uremia, D, diabetic ketoacidosis, P, propylene glycol and paraldehyde, I, iron and isoniazid, L, lactic acidosis, E, ethanol and ethylene glycol, and S, aspirin or salicylic acid. Okay, bigyan natin ng star kasi must know yan. No? Okay. Next naman, normal anion gap metabolic acidosis. So, itong anion gap niya falls between 10 to 20. And this condition leads from the loss or the decreased levels of the bicarbonate compound in the bloodstream. So, ano yung mga condition that would lead to NAGMA? So, number 1, hyperalimentation. Ano ibig sabihin ng hyperalimentation? Halimbawa, nagkaroon kayo ng surgery sa stomach, no? Halimbawa lang, nagkaroon kayo ng cancer sa duodenum, and it would take a month bago mag-heal. So, 1 month ka na hindi kumakain. Okay? And then, bigla kang kumain. Okay? Na-tempt kang kumain, halimbawa ng donut. And then, therefore, yung mga enzymes mo sa digestive tract hindi ready para dun sa pagkain na yun. Kasi nga, matagal ka nang hindi kumakain. So, therefore, magkakaroon ng reaction, no? Ilalabas mo lahat ng kinain mo, minsan nagsusuka, no? And minsan nagtatae. So, kasama dyan na nare-release mo is yung bicarbonate. Next naman, acetazolamide, which is a type of diuretic. Ano ibig sabihin ng diuretic? Pampaihi, no? And one of the side effects dyan ng acetazolamide is nailalabas mo din yung bicarbonate compound through urine. Sino bang kailangan ng diuretics? Ito yung mga nagmamanas, no? So, kailangan na mailabas nila yung tubig from that manas using this diuretic. Next naman, renal tubular acidosis. And in this condition, kung matatandaan nyo yung mga renal tubes nyo in AUBF, one of the compounds na kailangan i-maintain na mga proximal convoluted tubules natin is yung mga electrolytes. And one of the electrolytes is bicarbonate. Kapag nagkaroon tayo ng problema with your tubules in the nephrons, nagkakaroon din ng losses of the electrolytes, and one of them is bicarbonate. Okay, next naman, diarrhea. Okay, same as your hyperalimentation, no? Nailalabas mo din yung mga electrolytes mo through your poops or feces. And kasama dyan, yun nga, bicarbonate. Next naman, ureteroenteral fistula. Ano ibig sabihin ng fistula? These are abnormal connections ng aling mga organs? Ureter and your digestive tract or intestine. Okay? So, supposedly, walang dapat na connection yung ureter, yung daanan mo ng ihi, and the intestine. Pero dahil dun sa condition mo na may fistula ka, no, it is one of the congenital problem. So, nagkakaroon ng mga losses. So, supposedly, na-absorb mo dapat yung bicarbonate mo, na-release mo na siya out of your intestine, and then magkakaroon ng eventually diarrhea. Then next, your pancreatic fistula. Okay, again, fistula, abnormal connections. So, madalas, sa mga pancreatic fistula, no, meron siyang connections with your urinary bladder or your stomach, ganyan. Diba? The only connection of your pancreas is the common bile duct dapat. Pero, nagkakaroon nga ng abnormal connections, yung bicarbonate coming from the pancreas, nare-release niya out of these organs. So, at the end of the day, ano mnemonics natin dito? So, meron tayong mnemonics na hard up. Get in a star dahil mas note to. Hard up. H is hyperalimentation. A, acetazolamide. R, renal tubular acidosis. Diarrhea. Ureteroenteral fistula. And pancreatic fistula. Okay, important to take note that both diabetic ketoacidosis and lactic acidosis can happen to diabetic patients. Pero tingnan natin kung anong difference itong dalawang ito. Okay? So, in diabetic ketoacidosis, more on sa DM type 1 siya. And yun yung mga nakamiss ng insulin doses nila. So, therefore, tumataas ang kanilang mga sugar levels or glucose levels in their body, and it will then converted into keto acids. Okay? And ang manifestation sa pasyente, they usually have fruity-like odor of breath. Next naman, lactic acidosis. Madalas ito sa mga type 2 DM. And in contrast with the diabetic ketoacidosis, ito naman, compliant, very compliant sa pag-take ng maintenance meds nila na ang tawag doon ay metformin. One of the contents of your metformin is lactate. Okay? So, therefore, kapag naging activated na yan, no, it will turn into lactic acid. Kasi, once na naging very compliant na sila, okay? So, naiipon yan in their body, lalong-lalo na sa mga laging nag-exercise. And, so, ang manifestation nila, they have severe muscle pain after strenuous activity. Merong lactic acid na accumulated from the metformin. Meron din lactic acid accumulated from the muscle mass degradation. Okay, as summary, the problem in non-respiratory or metabolic acidosis is organs other than lungs. Okay? And the pathophysiology is the accumulation of acidic compounds and loss of bicarbonate. Bakit meron loss of bicarbonate? Di ba ang bicarbonate is basic. Pag nababawasan ng ganyan sa ating bloodstream, so therefore ang pH mo is nagiging decreased. So this is the primary problem. Okay, sino magko-compensate na organ? Ang magko-compensate is yung lungs natin. Ano ang gagawin ngayon ng lungs mo to balance your pH? You will hyperventilate. So, hyperventilate, tataas ang RR. So, therefore, madami nare-release na CO2 sa katawan. So, therefore, tataas ang pH. And then, and this will address the problem of acidic pH. So, therefore, magiging balance na. Next set of condition is non-respiratory or metabolic alkalosis. So, again, we have two pathophysiology. Number one, increase of bicarbonate compound. And number two, there is an excessive loss of acidic compounds naman. So, baliktad ni metabolic acidosis. The example of conditions that would lead to this problem is number one, no? Unahin natin yung number one pathophysiology, naiipon si bicarbonate. So, ang condition that would lead to that is there is a massive blood transfusion. Dahil merong mga content na bicarbonate containing, such as your citrate. Citrate is basic compound. So, pag madami kang blood bag na binibigay sa pasyente, ang blood bag mo has citrate, which is a preservative of your blood, dumadami din yung basic compound. So, therefore, tumataas ang pH. Next, excessive loss of acidic compounds na umaalis or nare-release mo yung mga acidic compounds sa bloodstream. So, ano yung mga yan? Unang-una, vomiting. So, sa vomiting, ano ang nalulus mo dyan? Nalulus ka ng hydrochloric acid, which is from the stomach. So, kapag nagsusuka tayo, medyo maasim yung nalalasahan natin. Yun ay yung hydrochloric acid. Next naman, nasogastric tubing. Kung nakita na kayo sa mga telenovela, no, merong mga pinapasok sa ilong na tube. Diretso yun papunta sa stomach. Okay? So, there is an opening. Therefore, kapag umangat yung acid, lumalabas out of the tubing, and out of the nose. So, naubos din si hydrochloric acid. And then next, diuretic ulit. No? So, merong ibang diuretic na ang effect is alkalosis. Kasi it is specifically will excrete ammonium naman. Ammonium compound in the urine. Ano nga ulit yung nakakapag-acidotic na diuretic? It is the acetazolamide. Okay? And this is an example of NAGMA. And all other diuretics naman, alkalosis na. Okay, in summary, the problem in non-respiratory or metabolic alkalosis are organs other than lungs. Okay, the pathophysiology is that there is an accumulation of your bicarbonate, which is a basic compound, and loss of acid. So therefore, tataas ang pH mo. Sino ang magko-compensate na organ? Your lungs. Anong gagawin ng lungs para mapababa niya yung pH? Mag-hypoventilate siya. So, bababa yung RR. So, therefore, kakaroon ka ng retention of your carbon dioxide. Wala kang ini-exhale. So, therefore, bababa din si pH. And yung pagbaba ng pH na to will address the high pH sa problem mo, and then eventually it will balance out the derangement. Okay, so darating ang time na may hawak na kayong mga lab result, no? And kailangan nyo nang magbasa or mag-interpret. So paano natin gagawin in terms of ABG? So, unahin natin, no, check the pH. Okay? Determine mo muna kung alkalotic or acidotic si patient. Next, determine mo din if respiratory, metabolic, or mixed problem ang derangement ng pH by checking the levels of your PCO2 and your bicarbonate. Next naman, kapag metabolic acidosis ang problema, you have to do the next step. Compute for an ion gap. Kasi kailangan mo i-classify either your HAGMA or NAGMA. And then lastly, you check for compensation. Nagko-compensate na ba yung organ na dapat mag-compensate? Okay, di ba? Kanina pinag-usapan natin kapag lungs ang problema, ang magko-compensate si kidney. Kapag metabolic ang problema, ang magko-compensate si lungs. So, paano mo yan i-check? You check the pH, PCO2, and bicarbonate. So, isa-isayin natin yan. Halimbawa, check the pH. Okay? As always, remember your normal values. The normal falls between 7.35 to 7.45. Lower than that, lower than 7.35, acidosis. Higher than 7.45, basic or alkalosis. So, yan yung first step natin. The next step, determine mo kung respiratory, metabolic, or mix by checking the PCO2 and bicarbonate. Kapag ang abnormal is yung PCO2 mo, tapos normal si bicarbonate, ano kaya ang problema dito? So, ang problem natin is nasa lungs. So, nasa respiratory type of condition tayo. Baliktad naman kay metabolic. Abnormal si bicarbonate, normal ang levels of your PCO2. So, dito ay metabolic or non-respiratory problem. So, may mga times naman na mix ang problem mo, no? Mixed respiratory and metabolic. So, therefore, both bicarbonate and PCO2 are abnormal. Kaya, dapat alam nyo rin yung inyong mga normal value. Again, what is the normal value for PCO2? PCO2 is 35 to 45 millimeter mercury. Your bicarbonate ranges from 22 to 26 millimoles per liter. Okay, dito naman tayo. So, for the interpretation of the first problem, dito sa first problem, ano ang pH natin? So, interpret natin to as below the normal. Okay, so acidotic siya. While your PCO2 of 49, your PCO2 is abnormal. Next naman, bicarbonate is 22. So, ang range natin dito is 22 to 26. So, therefore, your bicarbonate is normal. So, ano ang condition natin kung ito yung ating results? It would be respiratory acidosis. Acidosis kasi low ang ating pH. Respiratory dahil abnormal ang PCO2, normal ang bicarbonate. Okay. Next example naman tayo. pH of 7.59. The pH is higher than normal, so alkalotic yan. The PCO2 of 37 is normal. Our normal range is 35 to 45. Bicarbonate is 42. The normal is 22 to 26. So therefore, the bicarbonate is abnormal. What is now the condition based on this data? Metabolic alkalosis. So alkaline, alkalotic ang ating pH. Metabolic dahil abnormal ang bicarbonate, normal si PCO2. So meron tayong rule na tinatawag na ROME. Respiratory opposite, metabolic equal. So, paano natin i-apply yan in interpretation of ABG? Kung respiratory ang problem, dapat opposite ang pH and your PCO2. Given na normal si bicarbonate. So, hindi sumasabay ang changes ng pH sa carbon dioxide. Okay? Kapag respiratory condition. Kung papansin nyo, high pH, low PCO2, low pH, high PCO2. Okay? In contrast with metabolic conditions, ang rule natin is equal. Okay? Pakicorrect na lang ang inyong handout. This is supposedly bicarbonate. Sabay ang changes ng pH and bicarbonate given na normal ang PCO2. Okay? So, dapat sabay din ang pagbaba. Mababa ang pH, mababa din ang levels of your HCO3 or bicarbonate. Okay, next naman. Diba, kapag ang problem mo ay metabolic acidosis based on the initial assessment, you have to compute with your anion gap. So, kukunin mo yung information ng pasyente such as your sodium, chloride, and bicarbonate. So, again, this the formula is an ion gap is equal to sodium minus the summation of your chloride and bicarbonate. Okay? And supposedly, kapag nagma, it falls between 10 to 20. Kapag hagma, more than 20 dapat ang ion gap. And last step is to check for compensation by checking the levels of your pH, PCO2, and bicarbonate all together. So we have three types of compensation. We have non-compensated, partially compensated, and fully compensated. So first, tingnan natin ang pH. Kapag ang pH is not normal, it is still not compensated. No? Hindi pa gumagalaw yung counterpart organ. And, check mo ngayon yung counterpart parameter. Halimbawa, respiratory problem. Ang problem is your PCO2. The counterpart parameter now is your bicarbonate. Kapag ang changes, no? Kapag, halimbawa, no? Kapag bagsak si PCO2 and still normal si HCO3 or bicarbonate, hindi pa rin nag-a-adjust, so not compensated ang classification. Next, partially compensated. pH is near normal, no? Near 7.35 to 7.45. And the counterpart parameter is changing but not enough to normalize the pH. Halimbawa dito, no? Mababa ang PCO2 mo. Gumagalaw na si HCO3. Okay? Tumataas or bumababa na. Bumababa na yung levels mo ng HCO3. But still, abnormal pa rin, no? Mataas pa rin si pH. Hindi pa rin sapat para maging normal ang pH. Although may changes na. Okay? This is classified now as partially compensated. Sa fully compensated naman, normal na yung pH. Halimbawa, no, mababa ang PCO2 mo, bumababa na si HCO3, okay, bicarbonate, and then si pH nagiging normal na. So therefore, this is now fully compensated. Okay? Medyo nakakalito, no? Meron naman akong trick na ituturo sa inyo para sa beginners. And this trick is what you call tic-tac-toe method. This is an unconventional way to interpret ABG results. Pero wag kayong mainip, no? Gagaling at gagaling naman kayo dito. Darating yung time na eyeballing na lang ang gagawin nyo. Tititigan nyo lang yung papel at alam nyo na yung problem at alam nyo na yung anong type of compensation. Pero as a beginner, no, ito yung preferred way ko na ituro sa inyo paano gawin ang ABG interpretation. Gagawa muna kayo ng table na ganito. Okay? You have to memorize on how to construct this. So, gawa kayo ng table na ganyan. Lagyan nyo dito acidosis, normal, alkalosis. So, umpisa ang pH, respiratory, and then metabolic. Lagay nyo din yung mga values. 7.35, 7.45. Pabaliktad naman dito sa respiratory. Dito ang 45, dito ang 35. Metabolic naman, dito ang 22, dito ang 26. You have to memorize on how to do this tic-tac-toe format. But you have to take note, baliktad dito sa ating respiratory, ha? Ang higher value nandito, ang lower value nandito. And may papadagdag ako na bar. Meron dapat dito na red bar. So, mamaya explain ko bakit meron dyan. Okay, paano gamitin ang ating tic-tac-toe method? Okay, halimbawa, pH of 7.09, saan mo ipa-plot ngayon yung ganitong value? Okay? Kapag ang kapag dito sa part na to, 7.35 pababa. Dito sa part na to, 7.35 pababa. Dito sa part na gitna, 7.35 to 45. Dito naman sa part na to, 7.45 pataas. Okay, kung naintindihan nyo. Halimbawa dito sa pH na to, 7.09. Saan natin ipa-plot ngayon? Dito sa part na to. Okay, dito natin ipa-plot. dahil mas mababa siya sa 7.35. Next naman, PCO2 of 37. Saan natin ipa-plot dito? So, gagawin natin, mas mababa sa 35 dito, 35 to 45 dito sa gitna, mas mataas sa 45 dito sa part na to. So, saan ipa-plot si 37? Dito sa gitnang part. Okay? Next naman, bicarbonate of 12. Saan ipa-plot dito sa part na to? Sa 22, pababa dito sa part na to. 22 to 26 dito sa gitna. Mas mataas sa 26 dito sa right side. So, saan ipa-plot si bicarbonate of 12? Dito sa part na to. Okay? So, di dyan natatapos ang ating problem. We have to classify what type of condition. Okay? By reading this tic-tac-toe method, we can deduce that the problem is metabolic acidosis. Okay? So, ganito binabasa yung ating tic-tac-toe method. Next naman, regarding sa compensation, is it not compensated, partially compensated, or fully compensated? Based on this tic-tac-toe method, it is not compensated. Bakit kaya? Kung titingnan natin, no, ang ating rules, the pH is not normal, the counterpart parameter is not moving, okay? It is still normal. Okay, and yung ating problematic parameter is nasa problematic site, no? Nasa acidotic part. Okay, again, ang pH is not normal, the counterpart parameter is still normal or not moving, and this is therefore not compensated. So the final answer is metabolic acidosis not compensated. Let's move with another example. 7.69 pH. Saan natin ipa-plot dito? So dito natin ipa-plot. PCO2 of 47. So dito ang plot ng 47. Bakit? Dito kasi yung higher than 45. While dito yung lower than 35. While bicarbonate of 39, dito ipa-plot. So therefore, what is the type of condition? The condition is metabolic alkalosis. So bakit? Ito, pa-plot mo lang metabolic alkalosis. Okay? Kung saan siya tumapat yung pH mo, yun ang magiging basis ng respiratory or metabolic. Parehas silang problematic, right? Pero, dito sila nag-meet. So, metabolic alkalosis lang siya. The next question, anong type of compensation? So, kung titingnan natin, the pH is not normal. Okay? Your problematic parameter nandito. Ano ang ginagawa ngayon ng counterpart parameter mo? It is now adjusting. Okay? So, anong klaseng compensation to? Not normal pa din ang pH. Adjusting na yung counterpart parameter. Okay? Your problematic parameter is still problematic. Okay? So, therefore, what is the type of compensation? The type is partially compensated. Bakit? Kasi gumagalaw na si counterpart parameter para mahila niya pabalik dun sa pagiging normal or balanced pH. So, another example. Okay? pH of 7.36. Saan natin ipa-plot dito sa ating tic-tac-toe method? Okay, dito natin ipa-plot. So, specifically dito sa left side of the bar dahil mas malapit siya sa 7.35. Okay, PCO2 of 59 naman. So, dito natin ipa-plot dahil more than 45 siya. Bicarbonate of 30. Dito naman ipa-plot dahil more than 26 siya. So, paano natin i-interpret yung problem na to? So, this is a respiratory acidosis. Okay? Malapit siya sa acidotic area, kaya ako siya nilagyan ng bar kasi para maklasify natin further yung condition na to. Ay, kung ganitong type of results yung ma-receive nyo sa laboratory, mas madali kung ganito, kung lalagyan natin ng bar. And respiratory kasi nasa right side, nandito sa side ng acidosis. Okay? Hindi pwedeng metabolic acidosis yan. Napakalayo. Ano naman ang type of compensation? Kung ganito. Nasa normal ang pH. Okay? Problematic parameter, nandito. Ang counterpart parameter mo, gumagalaw. So, ano ang type of compensation na to? Normal pH, counterpart parameter, gumagalaw. So, this is an example of a fully compensated. Nag-normal na ang pH dahil dun sa changes of the counterpart parameter. Susubukan natin i-plot itong itong example na to. 7.45. So, ipa-plot natin siya dito. Okay. 64 PCO2, dito yan. Bicarbonate of 45, dito. So, therefore, the problem is a metabolic alkalosis and, sige, sulat natin. Alkalosis. And what type of compensation? No? Normal na ang pH. The counterpart parameter is moving. So, therefore, it is fully compensated. Okay, next example naman tayo. 7.95. Dito yan. PCO2 of 35. Okay, dito yan sa normal. Okay. And then HCO3 of 44, dito. Okay. So, therefore, this is a metabolic alkalosis. So, what type of compensation? Your pH is not normal. Okay. And the counterpart parameter, which is PCO2, is not moving. Nasa normal pa din. So, the compensation is not compensated. Okay, 7.25, dito. PCO2 of 45, dito sa gitna. HCO3 of 16, dito naman. So, therefore, metabolic acidosis. What type of compensation? Your pH is not normal. The counterpart parameter is not moving. Nasa normal stage pa rin. No? Di pa rin siya nag-a-adjust. So, therefore, the compensation, the type is not compensated. And last example, okay, 7.45, ay 44. So, saan siya? Ito yan. Malapit siya sa 7.45. PCO2 of 25, dito. Bicarbonate of 40, so dito. So, therefore, what type of condition yan? So, it is a mixed problem, no? It is a mixed respiratory and metabolic alkalosis. So, what type of compensation? So, the pH is normal na. So this is a fully compensated problem. So this is the end of the EBG topics. I hope nag-enjoy kayo dun sa tic-tac-toe topic natin. And I have a task for you guys. You have to accomplish the assignment posted on the module tab and submit your work on or before March 8, 2021 and use it as a form of exercise. Kumbaga, kasi you will have this type of questions again sa ating major exam. So see you on our next topic, gas exchange.